Welcome to another episode of the Strongman Say. Good to be back with co-host Mr. Leigh Shaw. How are you, sir?
Yes. Good. Not as hungover as you.
Yeah, I'm pretty hungover.
Not at all, actually. I'm not. You've got all of it.
We had our Strong Geelong Members Awards and Trivia Night, and I wouldn't say that I get anxiety coming to work often, but after like an awards night where like I've just drank too much and I'm sitting on a microphone, I have a little bit of like come to work post like, what the fuck did I say? Because I can't remember much. I don't, you know what? Like I haven't been white girl drunk in quite some time, but I honestly do not think I can remember much from like 9:30.
That's probably a good thing. It wasn't that bad. No, it wasn't that bad at all.
I said that to Kelly this morning, and she was like, "No, honestly, I don't think I've laughed that hard for quite some time." And I was like,
good.
That's good feedback." And then Steph was like, "Oh yeah, you just wouldn't shut the fuck up." And I was like, "Okay, so maybe somewhere in the middle."
Yeah, you're just out of touch.
Yeah, I am definitely out of touch. I definitely do not have the drinking caliber that I once had.
Look, if the members keep bringing you up glasses of wine, they're encouraging it, and it's their own fault. Then if you turn around and rip shit back into them,
I could just not drink that wine, but yeah, like they just dump. Like my table always has a wine on it.
I reckon there was a good 20 minutes where it just felt like a stand-up comedy show.
Yeah.
Tyson would walk along and be like, "You, roast you," and then someone else would say something and be like, "Don't get me started about you."
Poor Jordan. I don't actually remember too much, but I definitely know that I gave him plenty of shit.
Yeah, I feel like it was just all this pent-up, like, and you in the gym.
Yeah, it's usually just me like saving everything for like 12 months as like a gym owner. You just kind of like bite your lip and you can't do too much about it. It's like, whatever. And then you just unleash on that night and let everyone know.
Trivia night's a night for you to get drunk and just like tee off.
I also get conscious of like, does it just get to the point where, you know, your grandparents or like, there's like that older guy who is just wildly inappropriate, but you kind of just let it slide because he's like, he's a bit older, it's fine.
Yep.
Like, am I getting to that point in my life where I'm just sliding into inappropriateness and everyone just lets it go?
Probably, because everyone's got to go to Granddad's house 4 days a week and train. So you let him get away with it.
Anyways, Brits was also on the weekend, which is much more exciting than my stand-up comedy routine.
Yep.
We had Luke Stoltzman coming first, Shane Flowers and Andrew Flynn in third, tipping Paddy, a very athletic strongman. Did you watch it?
I did. I didn't watch it live at 3 a.m., but I watched it like the morning after. I watched most of it. Always heaps of upsets.
Yep.
Luke Richardson out after sandbag carry.
Yep.
Blacked out.
Yep.
And then
A few blackouts.
Yeah. Who else? Gav Bilton on the deadlift.
Gav,
yeah.
So this, yep.
It's a hard one. Everyone said, like I saw on like a Reddit thread, everyone being like, Paul Smith should be in.
Yep.
Like, why is he not back in kind of thing? Because he would compete really well.
Yes.
And I don't know if there's a qualifying process or not. But
yeah, I don't know what the go with Brits is and that Giants Live. Like, you would assume that being Brits, there should be some qualifying spots, but is it just invite only kind of thing?
If it's qualifying based on previous Giants Live, then it's obviously very selective of who gets to qualify.
I think there is a qualifier this year.
England's?
Coming up, like, England's qualifier maybe, yeah.
Yeah, so Kane Francis won that,
Yep.
and he's out because he's injured. So he would have been in as well.
Yeah. Interesting. Luke coming first. I had an interesting question, and I'm not going to get too much into this, but someone asked me recently, if you knew something about a client, would you continue to coach them? Like, if you knew that there was something going on with a client, and I don't think we can really comment because, like, you never know the full story, right?
Yeah.
I do not wish to get into it because I respect both, like, athlete and coach incredibly as athlete and coach. Do you know what I mean? But someone asked me this week, actually. They were sort of asking pertaining to this and another issue, and they sort of just said, "Hey, I'm just curious. Like, if you knew there was something going on with either this was in relation to a coach doing something that they didn't agree with, or an athlete, if you're a coach and an athlete that you have is doing something that you don't morally agree with, do you continue to coach them?" Thoughts?
I mean, if it's their personal life, then it's their personal life.
Yeah.
If they're planning murder, like if they're going out of their way to like harm people, or something major.
I just thought it was a really interesting question, and obviously it arose because of that. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'd feel very uncomfortable if I knew it and I was coaching them, and I'd feel like I would have a very hard time. Like, but you also don't know the full story. You also, it's also, like your job as a coach is to help guide people in those situations. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have a position of like not authority, but of trust.
Yep.
So if you're in that position, the idea would be that you would be able to hopefully steer people in a better direction. But like everyone's miles, I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting question. I don't actually have the answer. I think it would be very like case dependent, but I thought it was an interesting one.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did that with Luke, and then like Dan, and then even like Tom Stoltman.
Yeah.
Being like, oh, well, Tom would have known and this and that. And it's like, why is Tom getting attacked?
Yeah, like, I find it always interesting, especially as like a gym owner, where you'll have something happen in the gym or something like this, and your first inclination is probably to react or to like get ahead of like an issue. And so often you do that, and it's always more complex.
Yep.
And there's always just more sides to one story, and you know that the truth always sits in the middle somewhere of those two stories, or like the interpretations of those two stories. And I always find that no matter what outcome that you have when you're trying to be diplomatic, no side is ever happy. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I look at it from that point of view, as I always find that, you can make a judgment call, and you can make a call on how you're going to deal with this, and you don't share that with everybody.
Yep.
You deal with it. And then you'll get like oh, but you didn't do this, or like, why aren't they cancelled, or why haven't you cancelled the membership? And it's like, well, you don't know the full story.
Yep.
And you don't know both sides. And I think it definitely comes down to something like that. Anyway, I just thought interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you could expand that into like federations, comps. Do people refuse someone competing at their comp because of...
Extrapolates hugely.
Which is still tricky. There's still people that like... it delves into actual court and things like that, where people are found guilty of stuff, and then they're still doing comps, and everyone's like, "Why are they still doing comps?"
I always find
and it's like, whoa,
the PSL clash thing is so interesting. Like, I don't know nearly enough to comment on this, but I know that one party is constantly posting on Facebook about how not to do it.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it just seems like I guess unless you're in the know.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's always two sides to a story. You know what I mean? It's very, always a tricky one to navigate, I feel. We had Shane come second, who's gotten better and better and better, which is fantastic. And Andrew Flynn coming in third, who I don't know too much about. Flynn?
I think he did England's. I've seen him at a couple of comps. He may have done the Chaos one last year. I feel like one of the people that could probably jump in a Giants Live. Actually, there's probably a few of them in that list that could jump in a Giants Live and be competitive.
Yeah.
It's just whether they get that shot or not, which comes down to personality and if the crowd remembers them.
Yeah. So
really is the only difference.
We were talking about this before, because the results from like Britain's Strongest Man are going to continuously be very similar. Likely, unless there's some new blood in there, right? So whether there's a qualification process, or whether some new faces get to show up, or the events change dramatically, or the style of event. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're going to see very similar placings for quite some time. Yeah,
it's a lighter comp as well, which means the bigger, stronger guys don't have it as easy.
Yep.
I think it was...
Who do you think is like the bigger, stronger guys? Because obviously Luke's a big, strong guy too. But those guys are pretty...
Sean?
Yeah, Sean Gillen. Yeah.
Statically much stronger. And I think it was, Lucas Hatton had like a predictions thing and stuff, and they were talking about who would win the log or something like that. And then Lucas was just like, if Sean has like the cardio conditioning 60 seconds of his life, he'll win. Yeah. But it was like a 160 log.
Yeah. For reps.
Yep. For reps. So he can do 200. He's got like the biggest log there. But trying to do that for reps.
Or 4, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How many did he get on there?
I'm actually not sure on that event.
I think he got 3.
3.
Yeah. Whereas then, like, I think Luke Stoltman's, the best he's done was 6 or 7, I think, at that weight at a different comp.
Yeah.
So, the conditioning side plays into the heavyweights far more than us.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if you can make 90 kilos and you're not 4 foot tall and, like, round, you're probably some well-conditioned to last 60 seconds.
Yeah, and probably
the levels change, but nowhere near as dramatically as the heavyweights.
And the nature of the sport as you come through is the same the whole way through.
Yeah, and you're constantly trying to grow too.
Yeah, for a 90 or 105, like there's always an element of conditioning, of repetition, like as you're coming through.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? If you're a heavyweight, trying to be a heavyweight, often like the loads will be top end of what you're doing the whole time you're coming through. So
Yeah, so you're weak and you're not wanting to lose weight.
yeah, so you're trying to get bigger, you're trying to get stronger because it's like, it's a 160 log and my log's 150, it's a 180 log, but my log's 160, do you know what I mean? So you're probably only ever getting 1 or 2 reps or 3 reps the whole way through because it's always heavy, right? Versus a 105 might get a log and it's like, okay, cool, this is 10 or 12 reps.
Yep. So yeah, that's probably the only challenge that they don't have the weight cuts or anything else, but they have the weird challenge of, for next year, should I lose 20 kilos?
Yeah, and
would I be a better athlete if I dropped a lot of weight? Whereas we don't have that option.
I saw I think Shane, who worked with Max, and Max posted that they dropped 10 kilos into this comp.
Yeah.
For Shane. Do you know what I mean? To get him fitter, which is interesting. And then it's like, okay, cool. Like weight goes back on for World's Strongest Man, maybe. So it depends on the event. And we saw that. We've talked about this with years. Do you know what I mean? You see like a very big change in athlete look and type. We saw, the years where like Thor and Brian are all like lean. You know what I mean? Or like Thomas Stoltman, like rocking those abs, which he did anyway early. He got bigger, then they cut back down and stuff like that. And then you see it swing the other way and they start to get bigger again and put a bit more weight on again. So I think you definitely see it sort of come in waves depending on the events.
Yeah, I don't think Worlds will ever be super heavy. Arnold's doesn't seem as heavy as it used to be. Giants Live run quicker and quicker shows and like not more moving based stuff, but definitely not as heavy as what it probably would have been.
No.
So the whole sport's trending towards being faster, fitter.
It's got to be a show.
Yep.
Right? Like it's got to be a show. It's got to sort of like, they want to watch you race.
Yep.
It's got to fit in a certain timeline, which means it's going to be so heavy and like Worlds is like so many events where if you're going to do so many events, like you can't like feasibly have the guys do everything super fucking heavy, right?
I also just don't think anyone's strong enough anymore. I don't think it'd be entertaining.
Less entertaining.
Like if they were trying to make it big, heavy, static lifts, you had Z, Brian and Thor who were 6'9", you had Eddie who just wanted to be big. So you had big, powerful guys, and they would bounce off each other. Whereas now, if you just had
Is that the sport creating the athlete, or the athlete's creating the sport?
I think the athlete's creating the sport. I think like Brian up and coming and him and Z going back and forth, they'd look at that and be like, how cool would it be to watch these two guys do a 700 kilo yoke?
Yeah, sure.
Whereas now it's like, who's doing a 700 kilo yoke? Like Mitch should probably move it.
And you don't think if you push up the events and the athletes push into those or become like, do you know what I mean? Like if you write the event and you're pushing them to do those heavy deadlifts, heavy pressing, heavy yokes, you don't think they start to adapt or like they get bigger, they put on more weight for those? Like we're saying, they drop 10 kilos to do a Brits?
Yeah, they do their best.
Yeah.
But genetically, like they can only do what they can do. Like,
I mean,
you make Worlds ridiculously heavy. Shane Flowers is not putting on 40 kilos and functioning.
No, because that's what I was about to say. Like a Shane's
like it's very limited.
A Shane's 144.
Yeah.
150. Like I don't know how heavy Luke would be. I'm not 100% sure. He'd be a bit heavier.
Yeah.
But you've got like back when those things were happening, like the guys are 400 pounds. Like Brian Shaw was like 180, 200.
I think it was over 200.
So yeah, I think
they all were.
Yeah.
Because that was Eddie's thing of like, I need to weigh 200.
Thor was cracking up to 200. Like Eddie was like 200. Like that's a significantly bigger human.
60 kilos heavier.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, compared to, I mean, like you've got like Sean Gillen and like Gav who are heavier guys, full stop. And they're statically stronger guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, definitely I would agree on that where like we just don't have a lot of athletes who have the frames nor the capacity to be able to like live at that.
Or make it entertaining and be consistent at comps, which, I don't know, I think comp promoters should definitely look at higher level comps, definitely. You can't do it at local, but look at who you've got competing and then start to think of events where how cool would it be to see these 4 people that are ridiculously good at this,
do this
and then pick a weight where you think it's going to be anyone's game.
Yeah. Do you think I reckon they would probably do that to an extent.
Yeah, they've got standard weights and standard events they have on rotation as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, they do the heavier stones now.
I guess that all comes down to as well, like, what equipment do you have? How hard is it to get around?
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it all comes down to like logistics as well, which we just forget about
Yeah.
when you're promoting comps.
I mean, the steeplechase was 3 sandbags, which is way worse than any other steeplechase has ever been. Normally it's just like 2.
2, yeah.
And you could see most people get 2. And like
then
the
gas
third
out.
was so different.
Yeah, gas out. We've got Arnold's Ohio, which is obviously, Arnold's is typically one of those heavier competitions.
Yep.
And we've got the Pro-Am, so the opportunity for the amateurs to kind of breach into the pro competitions as well.
Yeah, it's officially gone back to the winner of the amateurs
Yeah.
competes in the pro show, both men and women.
Which is quite exciting. So if you win in 2025 at the amateur, you will go into the pro show for the following year, correct?
Yeah. That was how like Oleski started. That was how Thor started.
Yeah.
Thor didn't even win the amateurs. He came second. And the person that won couldn't do the pro show. So Thor got to do the pro show and came like 7th or 8th or something like that.
And it was the same in Australia, where if you won the amateur, you would go in as a heavyweight, you would go and get the opportunity to do the pro show the year after, which was a really big deal here.
Yeah, and we had Token, so 64's 2016, they had that opportunity to compete with the pro women. They didn't have the same stage as what they do now.
They didn't. Yeah.
And obviously it was an open weight class, but that's what Kia competed in, won that, did the pro show.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And then 2019, they set it up for the 82s, which Lucia won.
Yeah.
But then didn't go in 2020.
COVID, probably as well. Like that's like a lot of the Australian guys got the opportunity to compete against some of those like major like international strongman guys.
And we had a lot come here too.
And we had a lot come over here. So and that's definitely something that the sport misses now here, is that exposure to like that like Giants Live pro circuit, which is very, very cool. You know, like being in the warm-up area with Thor, you know, like having a chat to Brian, like in the arena and stuff like that was very cool when you look back on it, which we sort of don't have now, because it sort of opened the gate from like Australian strongman to be like strongman. You know what I mean? Like we're just kind of on the back end of the world. Do you know what I mean? On a little island, and every time you want to compete or like go see those guys, it's got to be, you know, overseas.
Yeah, we got a lot more like recognised from the pro level and them actually coming here.
Yeah, for sure. So, and those guys like just getting the opportunity to compete against those, and like I think if we still had that opportunity, you might see, you know, some of those good guys like a Josh, Jordan, BJ, like obviously Eddie's already there, and like a few other guys have already been there, but you'll maybe see those other guys get an opportunity to show what they've got against those top guys, and maybe get more of a chance with that Giants Live scene. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well that was what Vernon won.
Vernon got
2018, and then didn't compete in 2019. So the invite went to Coco last minute to jump in and do the pro show. So yeah, every year the winner, and Eddie was the year before. Eddie won 2017 amateurs. Then got to do the pro show 2018 and did like the tank pull and won that, and kind of started to cement
him as a
him beating other pros at some events.
I think that's definitely something that we don't get the opportunity for now, which is a shame, because it's very hard for like an Australian to get onto that Giants Live scene. Almost fucking impossible, really. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You have to travel over there and compete a lot and then still get lucky.
Yeah, and like it's not a slight, but unless you have something unique, like you can be really fucking strong. We've got guys who are very capable of doing very well at that level. Unless you've got something special, like unless you're like Coco's got the French background, like you've got like a Fardy who's got obviously like his background as well, and then you've got like an Eddie who's got those great showmen and stuff. Unless you've got something to be able to leverage, it's very hard to get that spot. Do you know what I mean?
Even
if you're
still,
just Joe Blow who's fucking super strong, there's fucking 1,000 other Joe Blows who are very fucking strong.
Just to add one more to the mix, seeing as you're just naming a bunch of people that aren't white. Who also isn't white, like Rongo.
Yeah, sure.
Has something special, super strong, has gone into Giants Live, but still there's such a barrier to stay there and to get that invite back.
Yeah. You've got to, if you get the invite, you've got to represent.
But yeah, we just named 4 people that
So what we're saying, if
that
you're
hold
BJ
passports that aren't
so if
Australian,
you're
that aren't
BJ or
white,
Jordan, so if you've got red hair and white, you're not going to.
they need a tan.
Yeah, need a tan.
I should go with was it Sven back in the 90s that was like, he was, what country was he from? He was super tan, but he had like bleach blonde hair.
Yeah.
I reckon that's the guy.
Sweet, yeah. Well, like the bleach blonde, like
Pat's haircut, like
yeah.
Pat's blonde hair that he's had recently.
Yeah.
If we dyed Jordan's hair blonde,
Maybe get him
but he has to be tanned as well.
We could get him a sunbed, but you have to be a big sunbed.
Do you think it'll be a negative impact on Jordan's career if he does black up and dye his hair blonde? Or?
Well, I mean, so. I said tan.
No.
I didn't say get cornrows.
I think so.
Didn't tell him to wear a gold necklace.
So at Arnold, Ohio, we have Cherry competing.
Yep.
We have Katie and we've got Jordan. So we've got Cherry who came 5th at OSG. We've got Katie who came 4th at OSG, and we've got Jordan who is Australia's current strongest man.
All in the gym too.
All from our gym. Just saying. I've been giving a couple of the boys shit. I'm like, bro, if you want to be good, like if you want to be the best, you just got to be here. That's all. That's a simple solution.
I've had a lot of people message and be like, "What's in the water down there?"
No, I mean, like, I think personally, like, as an aside, you just put a whole bunch of fucking strong people in the room. Like, the expectation is high.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's all it is. And we've seen that go from gym to gym. Like, before there was, like, there was, like, Coco's back when Arnold was happening. Like, they were crushing. Like, you'll see it where the expectation is high and the people congregate. Like, that's where you'll see excellence. We talked about it on the weekend, but there was no powerlifting and strongman in Geelong when the gym started. Like, that's why it fucking started, you know? But it takes time for you to build up athletes and the expectation and, like, that stock. And then people, one, move here for it, or two, start strongman or powerlifting. And, like, you just when you have a pool to pull from, sometimes when you have a bigger pool and more people are attracted to it, you start finding exceptional people in those bigger pools. You know what I mean? Most generic gyms, most like niche gyms have 100 members.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's hard to get that pool. If you get a gym with 400 or 500 members, then you've got more people coming through the door. And I always try to tell people this, like, as a niche gym, like, the people who end up being the best, that they didn't come here because they were doing powerlifting or strongman.
Yeah, and they weren't very good to start with.
Or they weren't very good. Do you know what I mean? Like, you get like a Josh he did his first strongman program here.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Who had already done powerlifting, but you'll get a whole bunch of people who will start their strongman career here, but they'll get really good because the expectation is high. The coaching standard is high. Everything is fucking high, and everyone's getting after it.
I think not having context of what is strong helps in both. Like, I think there was like Stan Efforting, Mike O'Hearn, like a whole bunch of like old school guys that were like 10 years old in a gym with just a bunch of strong guys doing powerlifting. And they were like, I didn't realize at the time that they were like world record holders.
Yeah.
So they were like 10, 14, 16, 18. They were training with world record people thinking this is just a normal gym.
Yeah.
So their ceiling was like so skewed.
100%. You've got like Jordan, who's Australia's strongest man, who's an international level competitor. You've got like myself, you've got yourself, you've got like a Katie, you've got like Sarah, you've got a whole bunch of international competitors competing, and there's much more than that, competing at a very, very high standard.
So everyone thinks that's normal.
That's normal.
So they're like, well, I've got to catch that.
Yeah. Like there's a couple guys pulling 400, 360. Like everyone's pulling over 300.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's totally normal. It's like until you go to any time down the road, you know,
and get a weird look. I think you either need to do that or train in your garage.
Yeah, and not
at home by yourself.
Not have a reference point either.
But you need to not have social media.
Yeah.
Like Terrence that did under 90s from South Africa, came from a very small town.
Yeah.
Doesn't have social media, has no reference of what's good. So he comes over here and like years ago he was pulling like 360 as a 90.
Yeah.
And he was just like, what do you think everyone else is going to get for the 250 for reps?
Yeah.
And like I think Ram was like, oh, I reckon someone's going to get like probably 12. So Terrence goes out and just like reps the hell out of this thing, and everyone else gets like 5.
Yeah.
He just thought everyone else, like he didn't think he was strong.
Yeah, didn't have the reference point.
Because he's like I'm the only person that trains in my town.
Yeah.
So I don't even have a second person that actually like trains.
So we've got Cherry, who should do really well. We've got Katie, who should also do really well. And then Jordan, who should do really well. Like I see all three of those as very good competitors for that competition.
Heavy events.
Yeah, they are heavy.
Yeah.
And like
different.
Odd. Yeah, like different and heavy.
Yeah, trap bar deadlift for reps. I don't know what Jordan's weight is. The women's weight's, there's a lighter option, but otherwise it's 250.
Yeah.
And that's
heavy.
But like trap bar for reps is horrible because when you should fail on a deadlift, you
start to curl up and just fucking
you just watch people snake up and just do another 5 reps. Yeah. So like that's horrible from like an athlete perspective. Their yoke's not that heavy. The women's is 250. I imagine the guys is probably 4-ish.
4-ish something, yeah.
Yeah, max log.
Yeah.
Set weight jumps. The sandbag medley, that's probably the worst of it.
Yeah, the sandbag medley. I watched Jordan do that the other day, and he was just gassed. It was like
5 sandbags, 2 of them being Husafel sandbags, and they're only like 10-ish kilo jumps.
Loading that Husafel bag as well, like over bar, is very challenging.
Yep.
It's not a normal sandbag. It doesn't roll up. Like, you know, when you run with it, you kind of like pick it and just like...
It's low.
Fuck it, like sits at your hips. You're like, fuck it, let's go. It's 10 meters, you know? Like trying to have to get that to a loading point is challenging.
Yeah.
So that's super exciting. What do you feel? I quite like, or I'm quite enjoying the fact that the Arnold's Pro guys have the behind the neck press at the same time that our guys have the behind the neck press. Got like a BJ being like, yo, hi.
I can do this.
Which is quite fun.
Yeah, it'll give a good comparison.
Yeah.
And especially for the women too.
Yes. Yeah, I think both for both.
Give a good comparison of what the top pro level does with time to train it versus us here.
Yeah. I think it's quite good. It's a good dipping stick. And then you got, just like an aside, Sarah Rainbow in the animal cage as well, which is sick. The animal cage is the dream for most people. So I was
going to say, it's a dream for you still, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm definitely not.
Don't want to do a comp, but you just want to go deadlift.
I would love to go to the fucking animal cage. My deadlift's not big enough now. This guy's pulling 500s, and no one cares about a fucking sub 4.
You'd have to pull sumo.
Yeah, on a kabuki, like the fucking 8-foot bar. Maybe. Top 5 events, one ring to rule them all. Top 5 events that if you only could train 5 events for the year, you had to pick 5 events for the year that you could train to win. Let's say you're doing 10 competitions throughout the year, but you can only train 5 events. What 5 events do you think have the best carryover, or are your like monogamy events that if you're doing those, you're winning comps?
I did write these down too.
You cheated.
Yeah.
Great.
I thought about it in advance. I didn't get into specifics of like type.
Yeah, sure.
But like deadlift.
Yep.
Farmers.
Yep.
Axle overhead.
Axle, yep.
That'd be my pick over log.
Yep.
Or any other overhead.
Why over log? Just range.
Yeah, bigger range of motion. I think it's more transferable to like dumbbell rack position, everything else, like a proper front rack.
Yeah.
I think if you're good at axle, especially like push pressing,
log
is still hard, but you'll take to it reasonably well. Whereas I think if you're a big guy, and especially when you think of like an axle clean,
axle.
If you're a log specialist and you're a big guy that's great at log, doesn't mean that you're very good at axle.
See, but then the log's so specific because of like how it sits. It's
at least they'll be able to clean it though.
Oh yeah.
Sandbag carry would be my other one, and squat.
Oh yeah.
To be honest.
Interesting. Yeah. Squat.
Not necessarily a strongman squat.
Yeah.
But I feel like getting strong at a squat.
Interesting. Yeah. Cool. 5 events, and then
because I'd pick a sandbag carry over say like stones because you're still picking it up off the floor.
Yeah.
You still have to move with it.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think the squat would kind of cover the yoke.
Yeah.
In a way. Whereas I just can't think of anything else that would probably carry over into everything else. If your numbers on those 5 are just like off the charts, I think you're pretty good.
Yeah, you got like a
kind of thing.
Yeah, like if you're picking up a 180 sandbag and running it, like stone shouldn't be.
Whereas I've seen people with like a monster stone.
Yeah.
That can't really even front squat or squat much.
Yeah, and also like sandbags are harder to pick than a stone.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like they're more difficult. But it's still that like ground pick, lap, tight to the hip, extension, go.
I think if you could pick up a 160, 180 kilo sandbag as a big open guy and then you put tacky on and hit a stone.
Yeah.
you're probably fine.
probably will figure it out or muscle it up. Do you
Yep.
know what I mean? Yeah, interesting. Because I mean, we always, or like when we do seminars and stuff, we talk about the sort of the 5 pillars,
Yep.
which are probably different to the 5 events that you would train, or the 5 things that you could train if you only had 5. But we sort of talk about, and I think there's many more than this as I've gotten older. But like we talk about like yoke, deadlift, farmers, log, stones.
Yep.
Because especially back then, but even now, they are the most specific to strongman. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean? Like a yoke is very specific. If you can do a yoke, you can do most of the other carries and stuff like that. Log is more strongman than like an axe. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
axle, if you're barbell pressing and stuff like that, maybe it's like slightly more strongman skill based or more specific to strongman. Farmers, grip, moving, same deal. Deadlift obviously needs to be a staple, and then stones as well. So I always talked about those 5 pillars, but it doesn't mean that they would be the 5 things that I would only train if I could only train 5.
I think if it was
know what I
5 years ago, or potentially longer, that would have been my 5.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe it's just looking over the last couple of years
Yeah,
and
like
seeing
with the events and stuff like that.
sandbags everywhere. Sandbag to shoulder, sandbag carry, sandbag
They're
over
very
bar.
yeah, but because it's very easy to throw into a comp. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's a very
It's also very cheap.
yeah, and it's
very-
you manipulate them in 100 ways to make it different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can put sand in, you can
I've
take
seen
sand
so
out.
many steeplechasers over the last 3 years. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
it appeared once and then it's
Or
like,
sandbag into sled, sandbag
Yeah.
into something.
yeah,
So
like OSG every single year. Interesting. And you had accessories?
yeah, I was thinking of like a top 5.
What are your 5 accessories? So if you had those as your, like you've got a, was it yoke, axle press,
Not yoke.
sorry, not yoke, sandbag,
Yeah, sandbag carry, deadlift, farmers, axle overhead, squat.
Yeah, squat. So if you've got those, what are your like 5 accessory movements?
That was a hard one because then I started going, oh, what about a front squat? And I'm like, is that really like an
Not essential if you were to squat, right? But then
Yeah.
like, do you go unilateral like a split squat or something like that as an accessory?
That's what I
from
did pick.
Yeah, so I would definitely go a split squat, especially because we do so much unilateral moving.
Yeah, I went
gate
like a
pattern
rear
stuff.
foot elevated.
Yep.
Doesn't have to be a Bulgarian,
Yep.
but like some
Yep.
level of rear foot elevation. Where was the next one? Lost them all, which is great. The other one would have been like a back extension.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Basically, I was trying to go through being like, okay, some sort of like single leg movement, some sort of hinge.
That's what I would be like.
And I was
hinge,
like, good
single
morning,
leg, and then
RDL.
it gets super complex, doesn't it? It's
And I was just like, heavy back extension.
yeah, heavy back extension,
Even like a
heavy row.
45.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I would have had like a T-bar row.
yeah, so I would go something high. Like if I was going to go if I only have 5, I'm going to go like a high barbell or like supported row where I'm hitting like rear delt as well.
So like a
Do you know
chest
what I mean?
supported?
Yeah, like chest supported, like high row or something like that. Just because you would obviously like as a strongman, we want some like shoulder health. Like I would like to put in like a key shoulder exercise.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? But it gets
Me,
really
I
hard.
went full like Ronnie Coleman T-bar row.
Yeah.
Destroy yourself, be in a wheelchair when you're 60.
Ah!
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Also love.
The other one was like a strict press.
Yeah, strict press, like just a good shoulder health, like a behind the neck strict press or something like that.
Yeah. Any
Um,
sort of strict press, really. And the other one would have been like a hack squat.
Of course.
That would have been my pick. A hack squat.
You've got squat in there. You just don't need it. I'm telling you. Just squat.
Yeah, it's a back squat.
Leigh loves that fucking hack squat.
I actually don't particularly like that hack squat machine, but I love
A
hack squats in general. Yeah. So if I get on like a good hack squat machine, I'm like, this is
Yeah,
so
yeah,
nice.
nice. Or like
Like my
pendulum or
knees feel
something.
good, my quads feel nice. So
Yeah, interesting. I mean, just like on an aside, like whenever I'm looking at like a programming side of things, like throughout the week or even like if I'm traveling and I go, oh, I need to hit an upper body day. It's very simple. It's like vertical push, vertical pull, horizontal push, horizontal pull,
yep.
flexion, extension of elbow.
Typically I don't push press because I didn't bring lifters,
Yeah,
knee
100%.
sleeves.
No, but like,
And I also don't want to go heavy.
and if you're training lower body, it's going to be like a squat pattern, a unilateral pattern, and a hinge pattern.
Yep.
So like if we're traveling and I'm going away, I'm not really on program. Like you just look at like what function, and train the key functions that you're looking for, and then the rest
Yep.
is gravy after that. You know, it just as
Typically we walk into a commercial gym and go, oh, what's that machine?
yeah.
Oh, what's that
Yeah,
machine?
or that.
Yeah, that
like
machine
when
looks
we're in
fun. It's like,
Brisbane and there was that room. It was like,
yeah, the old
is
school
fun,
worlds
yeah.
thing.
It was Powerhouse Gym. That was fun.
It just feels boring to go into a place that has so many machines and go, okay, I'll back squat, front
Yeah,
squat,
I know. Yeah,
RDL.
yeah.
I'll do all my free weight
And I
stuff.
kind of end up doing that half the time, which is unfortunate too, because like it's, and we're going to talk about this anyway, but it's that like purpose or, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like, what are we doing? What are we training for? Is it purpose or enjoyment kind of thing? And not often if we're traveling, it's just for enjoyment, right? It's like, cool, get a session in.
I'm not expecting to get anything decent.
No, I'm just
if
going to
I'm
get a
traveling.
pump and have some fun. We're going to go into the mentality cycle of an athlete, which is something that Leigh and I were talking about during the week, actually, because we were talking about how we've got quite a few clients that are really pushing into the next level. We've both got like a lot of clients who, like we've talked about, they've started their journey, they've gotten better, and now we've got quite a lot of clients that really are capable of being quite high-level athletes at the world level, right?
Yeah.
Which is not how they come, but it's how they end. Like those ones that stay and they're committed, that's how they kind of end. And I was sort of talking about this cycle of where we are to where some of our clients are, because it's a very hard, it's very hard to navigate sometimes, I find, because we've been doing it so long with so many athletes and ourselves that it becomes a little bit of like nonchalance.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so the life cycle that I've described is overconfidence. So when you start off, you are overconfident, you know everything, you're fucking ready to tackle anything, you're at world level already, like I'm ready to fucking go.
There's a graph for that, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. There's like
There's
a
like
bell,
confidence
there's a bell
and
curve.
and skill
Yeah,
level.
Yeah. That's like the knowledge and stuff like that one,
Yep.
which is also very true. And like I can get into this as well, but then there's underconfidence, which I think that underconfidence and probably maybe underconfidence and over analytical in the same section.
When you don't know anything, you kind of think you know everything.
Yes.
And then when you start to learn a little bit more, you realize you don't know much. And that's where your confidence goes bang.
Yeah, and
Because you learn more and you're like, that's interesting. And then you learn more and you're like, oh shit,
I still feel
I
like
don't
as
know
a coach.
anything.
Do you know what I mean? Like I always
Everything
feel like
that I
as a
thought I
coach.
knew
Yep.
has gone out. Like, I don't believe that anymore.
Yep.
It's all out the window.
And it always changes. And you know, look, in today's day and age of like educational content, you can learn so much and get so much information, which is fantastic, but it's also can be debilitating and like soul crushing. Because like I go like, yeah, fuck, I've got a handle on all this shit. And I go like, oh fuck, like this cunt's really smart. Like I'm nowhere near that smart. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, did you hear his rant the other day about fitness gurus going off at each other?
I don't think I did know.
Did I? Don't
Wasn't
know.
it was your thing about like them like overanalyzing and like the back and forth?
Oh, was this the
was a-
insert caption like
It was the hierarchy of exercises and bits and pieces.
oh
like that,
yeah. It was I was having a rant
Which
about.
I kind of literally just did a hierarchy of exercises.
No, I don't mind the S tier. I don't mind like the hierarchy of exercise. I like the hierarchy of exercise. What I don't like
It was
is
the response to other people's
it's like
responses.
the whole idea of educational content is like we're not going to create educational content. We're just going to grab someone else's content, tell you exactly why it's wrong, and inform you or educate you by blasting someone else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like just the whole insert. The whole idea of creating content based on like just leveraging someone else's content is just fucking lazy. Anyways, underconfidence and over analytical, which I think is like where a lot of good athletes kind of end up, right?
Yep. It's easy to go from beginner, learn more,
Yep.
get better, and then somewhere in that intermediate to, I guess, advanced is where most people get stuck.
Yep.
Training-wise, most people get stuck if they don't put in the effort and
Also
they
becomes
don't.
the least enjoyable time to train because you start over-analyzing everything and second-guessing everything all the time.
Yeah, and progress slows down.
Which means you're trying to search for why.
Yep.
Like, it's not just continuing to come up. And it's like until you realize, like, it just doesn't continue to come up like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, so people start to change everything.
yeah.
And change and change and
Then
change.
also go backwards because at the end of the day, like when you're continually changing stuff, strength is consistency. And not
Yep.
consistency with just showing up. It's like consistency in moving and ritual. Like
Yep.
how you move, how you set up, how you put together the movements, how you approach the movement needs to be consistent day in, day out and feel exactly the same because that's when it gets strong, when you're hitting the same groove every single time and progressively overloading it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all there is to it, right?
You get a good routine and then it becomes autonomous and you don't think, which means you can think about the more important thing.
Yes. And then you get strong
Yeah, imagine like changing your deadlift setup
every single time.
every week. Like
People do
that's
it.
not that's not even changing. I don't even mean like stance width or positioning. I mean just the way you approach the bar and strap in.
Yeah. Everything different.
If you
all the
just
time.
change that,
Yeah.
like that would probably like ruin it for me.
The nuances of how you walk to the bar. I know this it gets pretty like pretty picky, but
In case you haven't overthought about walking to the bar.
yeah, but how you walk to the bar, like having salts, like how you grab the bar, how you're strapping in, like that whole routine is like for me it's autonomous, right? Like it's like you, and that would be for you too. I don't even think about which hand I'm strapping in or how many loops I'm doing and all that
I've
sort
had
of stuff.
people point out that I like put my wrist wraps on and then I like chalk up and then I do something else
from
and
the
then I
fucking
take them
get-go.
off and then I retighten them and I'm like,
Oh.
I don't remember. And I watch the video, I'm like, I do that.
Mm-hmm. Every damn time.
And sometimes like if I've got like 5 sets of log, I cut it from like the second that I'm in a position to the second like the rep's done.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same every time.
And
right?
the time,
Yeah.
it's like exactly like 12 seconds. Every single set, I'm like, wow, that's just exactly the same.
And that is really where you get strong, where like when you start to like delve into that like underconfident, over analytical phase of your lifting, it can be really jarring and stunting because you're constantly overthinking about like what you're doing, how am I doing it, how can I extract more, which is good. It's important to think about these things in phases, but there's also phases where you should not be thinking about that too much.
Yeah, you don't want to try and fix what isn't broken.
There's phases where things are supposed to be more cerebral and cognitive and you're making changes or being like aware of how you're moving to maybe change how you're moving or to tweak a certain thing, but you also don't want to start fixing what's not broken either.
Yeah.
And understanding that, especially in our sport, there's a lot of buckets to fill. So if you're trying to fill a lot of buckets or competing very regularly or whatever it is, like it's always going to come at a detriment of like not everything is going to feel fucking like you're at 110% all the time. And then you sort of move to the other phase where you've been doing it for a long time. We deal with like a lot of athletes, and both of us end up doing this quite a lot in preps where it's like, it'll be fun.
Back to the overconfidence.
And then back to...
It'll be there on comp day.
Yeah, back to maybe overconfidence or we sort of...
Acceptance.
Yeah, acceptance
Yeah,
of the
last
ride.
stage of death.
Yeah, like acceptance of like the lack of linearity. I don't know if that's a word, but the lack of linearity with like how things progress and how things feel and go during a prep. You know what I mean? The stronger you get, the more volatile things can sometimes get because there's more flux with a whole bunch of variables with the intensity, neural recovery. There's a lot of variables that can lead to 2 days feeling great and then 2 days feeling like utter dog shit. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think you start to become more accepting of the fluxes of a preparation, knowing that if the net output is moving towards the goal, you know what I mean? Like if you're moving in a net forward direction, then things are going how they should be doing. Sometimes things move better, some things don't move as well. But we sort of said, it like you become like, it's like that Yoda, like, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, especially when you've had preps where you've been injured 3 weeks out and then the comp went great and you were like, okay, I know that worst case, if that happens,
Fine.
apparently
It'll
I
be
can pull it
fine.
together.
Yeah, like...
Or you do a 4-week prep for a comp and it goes great. And then we've had other preps where 6-7 weeks out, I'm like, I feel amazing. This comp is going to go. I'm so ready and prepared now.
Yeah.
Another 6 weeks of fine tuning and I'm going to be so good. And the comp goes terribly.
Yeah. And this is the other thing that we talked about the other day, because you said this, which is it's not about like executing in comp, and you shouldn't feel ready 6 weeks out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not when we need to feel ready. And it's not about how well training's going, it's about how well the comp goes. Like you need to be able to express how strong you are in those set of rules and exploit the rules to point advantage on the given day. That's what matters.
I think you can focus on being gym strong or comp strong. It's very hard to be both.
And it's also hard because most of us like a dipstick. Like I know if my deadlift's fucking like 370, 380, like everything's gonna be pretty fine. Like I'm pretty strong, you know?
Yeah, so maybe if some people learn certain lifts or certain markers.
How things feel and like where you're at kind of thing. But at the same token, like, I don't know, I put my first 385 and I hadn't deadlifted over 320.
Yep.
It was in cluster singles and stuff. I had not going near there the first time I hit that kind of number.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? I felt really fresh. Like, so maybe like anything else, just running into the ground.
Wasn't the last 400 attempt off the back of just doing silver dollar deadlift.
Yeah,
For like 2 months.
Yeah, no, I hit the 390 and I hadn't done a deadlift. I'd just done silver dollar deadlift for ASI. That was it.
Yep.
So we hadn't done. We were training together.
Nothing off the floor.
We had done nothing off the floor, and I came in and fucked around and pulled 390 where I just done silver dollar deadlift. No, my 400 kilo attempt that was like.
I feel like that was off the back of nothing as well.
No, that was cooking it. Like, that was when I was in Ukraine. That was me cooking it.
I thought there was one more recent than the silver dollar then.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
How many?
Probably never saw the light of day, to be honest.
Delete video. Gone.
Yeah, so I think you kind of end up in that sort of like, it'll all be fine. It's going to be okay. This is how it goes kind of thing. So you end up on the other side. But as a coach, it's really hard because you're seeing these athletes in this underconfidence, over-analytical stage, and you're kind of like, it'll be fine.
And they're like, you're just saying that.
I was like, no.
Like you're just saying that to keep me calm.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it will be.
No, this is like, we're ages away. Like, you're not supposed to feel that fucking good right now. Like, you're just supposed to be doing the thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's like, and it's a very interesting life cycle that I just thought it was worth touching on because we were talking about it during the week, and I thought it would be interesting for people to hear because we'll have listeners at all 3 stages of that.
Yeah.
You know, like I get people who just start off who are like, well, I'm going to be fucking world's strongest man. I'm the strongest. You're like, okay, let's go.
And then you've got someone who actually could be world's strongest man, and they're like, I'm so shit. Yeah.
Like,
I think I'm gonna stop. I don't think it's for me.
It's just not working.
Yeah.
And like, I definitely get it, but how much better do you think you've gotten over the last 5 years?
In a lot of ways, I probably think worse.
And in a lot of ways, a lot better. I would say, as
Somehow,
a well-rounded athlete, it's like we're both essentially better. But I look back at some of the things that I was doing back 5 years ago, and I would say I was definitely stronger in some ways.
Yep.
But I also couldn't do what I can do now.
Yeah, I think there's something where when you first train, you know how they're always like, when you fail something, it's your mind that fails before your body. Yep. So like you put someone on a leg press and say, push to 1 rep in reserve. No one's pushing it to 1 rep in reserve.
Yeah, they cut it well short, their interpretation.
Some very advanced people will, because they've been training for so long and they're so used to the pain. Like, because once your pain tolerance goes up to a certain point, it's not a case of like, you're just being weak and you're like, oh, it hurts, I need to stop. Like, your body will stop. Yeah. The same as like an injury, like your body will cut out, like your nervous system will cut out. If the pain is too much, you can't like, just push through.
It's a protective mechanism, sure.
The people that tear muscle off bone are advanced enough to a point where they can push past that, and then the body's like, no. This is actually too much.
This was the dash light on the wall on the thing, right?
Yeah, and the brain's like, no, keep going, and the body goes, bang. So I think that comes with time. And when you're, say, a beginner or an intermediate, you go in comp and you're like, I always PB in comp by 20 kilos. Yeah. And it's like, because you mentally can't train as hard as what your body can. Yeah. And in comp, when there's noise and adrenaline and everything else, your body's doing what it can.
Yeah, sure. Like the ability to train hard. Train hard or like push or create the same arousal in training. So
and then I think we get to the point now where we probably don't push as hard because you are more concerned that you're like, oh, it doesn't really feel right. Yeah, you got to balance. And I feel like something could
Yeah, and you've got to balance well too, do you know what I mean, through your training week as well. But yeah,
I think more well-rounded and stronger, but in terms of
like PBs
showcasing that strength, I don't feel like I'd showcase it as well as I did.
No, but
because I would have just sent it.
Yeah.
Like I remember AMRAP deadlifting for like 12 weeks straight, and the last 4 reps just hitching. I was like, if I did that now, I'd need like 3 weeks off.
Yeah. This is also true.
So I feel like, showcasing like the intensity of it, that phase is kind of gone. And if I tried to do that now, I think I really would fall apart because I am a lot stronger.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
And it would knock me so much worse.
Yeah, and the stronger you get, the less you can do, essentially.
Well, I was AMRAPing 190.
Yeah.
As opposed to now for the same rep range, I'd have to be AMRAPing like 260 or 280, and like that's going to hurt.
Yeah. Talk to me on like training for enjoyment versus purpose in and out of season. Because I think this ties into like that athlete, that level and stuff like that, and understanding phases of training and understanding when you get to train for enjoyment and when you just should be doing your job as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like what's your theory or ideas on, when do athletes get to train for enjoyment or have more enjoyment in their training? And should there be a time where, it doesn't really matter what you're enjoying or what you're not enjoying? Like if there's a job to do and this is how you close the gap, this is how you close the gap.
Yeah, it depends. Do you want to do well in comp?
Yeah.
That's probably the first one. Or like how emotionally invested in the competition are you?
Yeah.
Does it mean something? Do you want to do well? Then your enjoyment in training probably doesn't matter as much because you want to enjoy doing well at comp. If you don't care about the comp and it's fun, just do whatever you want in the gym.
Yeah.
And do whatever you want at comp and accept that that's the way that it is.
But you enjoy comp a lot more when you win.
Yes,
saying.
if you're one of those people, if you like winning and you like being very
Most
competitive.
people, if you're competing in a sport.
Yeah, then enjoyment is, I don't think it's zero. Like I said, I like the 80-20 rule because it applies to a lot of things in life.
It has to be enjoyable to adhere to it too.
I think if I have to go and do axle deadlifts and say power stairs, or I actually don't mind power stairs that much, but what's something that I typically don't enjoy? Like I don't particularly want to do stones again because I've had time away and it's just like, it's an effort.
Tacky
If I have to do all of that, but I really enjoy going upstairs and doing like chest supported rows, or I want to go and do some bicep curls. If there's a couple of like accessories that bring me joy and I walk out, I feel pumped, I feel good. I'd like to tag those on at the end and just have a little bit of a win.
Yeah, for sure.
And go, all right, deadlifts felt like shit. My back feels cooked.
Yeah, but I feel big.
But my quads feel nice. My knees don't hurt anymore because I did something to fix them.
That's not saying that, like, especially intelligent programming can't be like purposeful and enjoyable. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would hope that both of us, like our clients, feel like I do my best to make the event training enjoyable. Like
I could make it so much. I could make it so much worse.
Oh, and way more boring. Do you know what I mean? Like, but you get the most out of people when it is enjoyable and they adhere to it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's it's kind of your job. It's like there are generalized rules that we follow, and there's a generalized idea of, okay, this athlete's here, they're at point A, we need to get them to point B. How do we close that gap or reverse engineer that to get them ready for comp? Right? But also, how do we do that so it's enjoyable for that particular athlete, or they're doing that, but also it's in a fun or enjoyable training way? Do you know what I mean? Because that's when you're going to get the most out of the person, right?
Yeah, if you picked a comp that you enjoy the events, then you get really lucky. Yeah. Because it's just great. You like the comp, you pick the comp, you like the events, you like training the events, everything works. Whereas you pick a comp that you're competitive, so you want to win the comp.
Well, you don't even pick a comp. The better you get, you don't pick comps. The comps that you're going to do are the comps that you're going to do because they're the titles that you want.
So you pick the comp that you want to win. You pick the title for the comp. And then the events come out and you're like, I hate all of those events. If you want to win the comp, you've got to do the events. So you do it anyway, and then the enjoyment factor obviously is not much.
No.
The enjoyment factor is the comp. So then, you probably need to find more ways to enjoy it somehow.
Yep. Like outside, like on the back of the event work or whatever else it is. Yeah. And, you sort of spoke like 80-20, 20-80. Not that those percentages are like set in stone, but just as an idea, right? So like when you're in season or competing for the prep, 80% of what you do should be directly related to the outcome that you're chasing. Yep. Right? And then 20% is that little bit of fluff. Yep. And then...
enjoyment.
Yeah, for enjoyment, whatever. And then outside of that...
Yeah, I think if I've got athletes and they've got 6 months off and no comp set in the future, of like the really annoying, boring, hard stuff, I can probably get them to give 100% on like 20% of that program. Yeah. Like, if there's no close goal, it's very hard to get somebody to really amp up for like multiple heavy sessions per week.
Very hard. So
you got to find ways to make a bulk of that enjoyable.
So it reverses, right? So outside of that training phase, you may look at like 20% being the hard stuff that you need to do, and 80% is kind of like for enjoyment or adherence. Yeah.
I had that with because Jess Nish wanted a new program. She's like, as long as I have log back.
Great.
I just want to train log. So I'm like, great, we can do heavy log. She'll get better at log. She loves it. And then I've got like a stone to shoulder. And she's like, I saw that. And I'm like, that's the one thing I want you to actually do.
Yeah, sure.
I want us working on that.
Yeah.
It was that, and there was some like moving events and conditioning. And I'm
Yep.
like, that's all I really need. But the rest of the stuff, the deadlifts, everything else to build on, she already enjoys it.
Yeah. And also, like, in general, I find, and it's definitely not a factor not to discount, is the amount of flux in training enjoyment and training output with athletes using PEDs too.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like, your training enjoyment will drop, your direction will drop, your strength will drop. Most fucking my male athletes are just little whiners.
That's probably very accurate.
But it's legitimate, like, and you understand it, right? Because unless you like remove yourself from those numbers, it's like I always say, like, no one wants to be Clark Kent when they're being Superman. You know what I mean? So it's very hard to get them into the gym, to be feeling good in the gym, and to be like creating a level of like training enjoyment that they can still springboard off and not go backwards, but actually progress to some degree. So then when you do put in those other elements or you start peaking, you get a greater output again. But if they just don't, and they're just fucking not enjoying it, and you're trying to bang away fucking what you think they need to be doing to get better, it's like, well, it's not the time sometimes. You know, you got to read the play a little bit.
Enjoyment will keep people somewhat consistent, which keeps a base.
100%.
And that's probably the biggest downfall of someone finishes a comp and they're like,
sometimes you just need to tick a box.
They're like, I'm going to have 3 months off.
Yeah.
I'm sick of doing this.
Yeah.
And then they go away for 3 to 6 months. And then a comp pops up and they're like, hey, I've got 8 weeks for this comp. And I'm like, what have you been doing?
Fuck off.
Not much.
Yeah.
I'm like, we got nothing to, like, we're in a worse position than 12 months ago.
100%. And like, where do we build from here? How fast is the strength curve going to come up? Like, it's really hard to coach. It's not hard to coach. It's why we do weekly coaching, but it's harder to coach because your expectation, your idea of how that strength curve comes up and how you're going to get that client from A to B, it's kind of fucking pissing in the wind a little bit. Like, it's
and they're like, but last comp I did this. And I'm like, yeah, but we had a 3-month base.
We trained for 12 months leading into that comp, you know? Like not 12 months for that comp. But I always said, like you were talking about getting an injury and fucking rocking up to Worlds in Germany, right? Like, and train for fucking 3 weeks. Yeah, but it wasn't a 12-week prep. I've been doing it for 10 years. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know the events. I know that I can go out and fucking hit the events. Am I going to be my best? Absolutely not. But I'm going to be all right.
The last 3 weeks doesn't make or break your total athletic career.
You train a little bit, but like, fuck, you know, you kind of get the idea anyway.
Yeah, I think naturals have...
There's a big advantage,
I think,
on this side of the side of the front, I reckon.
Yeah, like, I think the peaks and troughs aren't anywhere near as big, but also at the same time, like, you have to constantly be chipping.
Yeah, and that's...
So not heavy.
No.
But you just have to, like, even picking up heavier dumbbells for your pressing work, picking up heavier dumbbells for your side raises.
Yeah,
like
100%. Like, your accessories.
Little chipping away week in and week out has to be a must, because you can't get 6 weeks out to comp, dump a heap of drugs on top, and get ready.
No.
Like, 6 weeks out, if you're fatigued,
yeah,
like if your nervous system's cooked and you have nothing to push, and especially if you have to make weight, you can't push food. It's like, we don't have a ace.
No. Up the
this is it.
This is what you got.
Up your creatine.
Yeah.
Like, so I think theirs is a slower marathon, but at the same time, like, off season, super important to just keep chipping away.
Which
but
generally they do, and they can.
Yep.
Because like then they don't have that like flux of, like,
they don't become whiny little babies.
It's honestly it's a really interesting, because people talk about like, oh, there's no real difference between being training them, and there's not really from like a prep or like programming standpoint for like a prep side of stuff. Do you know what I mean? There's
periodization. If you zoom out, it would look very different.
Is very different, I think.
If you looked at months and years,
just because the fluxes,
the graph,
where like you really should be as like a natural athlete, chipping away at like your like you said, the accessories. Like, you need to put more muscle on. It's going to be harder for you to do. Like, you need to be working to near failure, or like creating like a stimulus for growth the whole time. You'll be able to keep chipping away, but you won't have those fluxes where you have really big drops off in strength and output, and then motivation as well. So you will kind of be able to back up those competitions, because you also won't have those super highs where you like super relative to your general strength and your immune system's getting fucking like slammed by a whole bunch of like not just training but like performance drugs, and then dropping those out. You know what I mean? Like, there's a very big difference with how that rolls. So there's certain things to definitely think about when looking at your zoomed out periodization and the differences between those two athletes.
Yeah, especially health markers wise. Like, if you come out of the back of comp and like your liver's stuffed and like your general blood work is cooked, and then for the next 8 weeks you're like, I feel so shit. Like I can't get out of bed. I'm tired, and it's like not healthy.
You hit the fucking button, bro.
Yeah. Hope you did well at the comp because it's the hangover.
Yeah,
It's the hangover to the big night out drinking, right?
I don't want to talk about that. I'm not ready yet. We're talking a lot about like coaching. Do you want to give us your coaching story? Because I've had obviously we put on John and we've got another coach sort of starting, a few months or whatever. But I was curious because I'm talking to these coaches about like what it looks like to start a business, and we get this a lot. Like I get this a lot in terms of like how was it starting a business? Like how long did it take you to build up like an online business? All those questions. I get those quite frequently because obviously, like in our day and age, like it's a very idealized job.
Yeah.
Like everyone idealizes being like an online coach, and everyone's trying to be an online coach, and it is a very, very hard job to crack into nowadays, I think.
Yeah, it's weird. It seems oversaturated, but at the same time, undersaturated.
Yeah, like
in terms of like,
there's a fucking lot of them, but there's also not a lot of like good ones where I'd be like, yep, sign up for that person.
Yeah, there's not a lot of good ones that have the experience or like the years or even themselves like competing in whatever sport they decide to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. How long have you been online coaching for?
7 years, maybe.
Full-time job?
Like 5, yeah.
Yeah. What are those first 2 years? Like obviously, so for those who don't know, Leigh was a floorer full-time. I was coaching him, we did Arnold's, Worlds, maybe coaching for a couple of years. How long did we coach?
Back into 2016 maybe?
Yeah, sure.
2017, start of 2017 maybe?
So coached for a couple of years. And then I was like, yo, have you thought about coaching? I think something along those lines. And I also obviously wanted to get him down here to coach in the gym, but it wasn't really until we got to a bigger gym that it sort of happened. But so full-time coach for like the last 5 years. What for those who are starting off? What do those first 2 years look like as building up a business and a reputation?
Slow. Very slow, but like
consistent but slow.
I think it was probably good that it happened when it did for me because I feel like social media and like the glorification of it wasn't there as heavy as post-COVID.
Relatively early adopter.
Yeah, like I started it and was just like, it'll just keep growing as it keeps growing.
Yeah.
So, and because I did flooring, and then I was like slowly pulling that back and then slowly doing more. Flooring, I'd subcontracted and worked for myself, so that helped because then I could pick and choose what I did where. But yeah, it was slow. I felt like I had 5 people for a good chunk of time. Yeah. And then I had 8, and then I had 6, and then I had 10.
This is exactly how I tell it. It's like, and then once you sort of like, cool, we get to 12, then it was like back down to 8, then it was like, oh, cool, we're coming up, and then it's like back down to fucking 12 again, and then I really felt like once you hit sort of like that 20 client mark, one, it starts to become a job, but 2, like you start to snowball as well.
Yeah, and I think it's also like you have more people to then share, more people share your stuff, more exposure. You get more solidified in being a coach and not an athlete. Like I think that's probably, if you're someone that's been an athlete for a long time, having people view you as just an athlete to someone who coaches athletes is a hard transition switch. Yeah. It takes a long time.
I think one of the hardest things as an up-and-coming coach is 100% flipping the perception of you from an athlete to a coach and creating authority and expertise in the area and a level of trust with the general consensus or community.
Yeah, like I think even then, maybe it was 2019, and I was coaching a good chunk of people in New Zealand as well.
Yeah, yeah. I remember.
And I remember it was like one of them over there was getting advice from like one of their old coaches, and they were like, "Oh no, like Leigh's got it covered. I'm just going to do this." And they were like, "Oh, doesn't he like do flooring?" Like, is he like kind of a, is he a coach?
Because you're really offended.
Wouldn't hold a grudge at all. At all. No, love AFASA.
Who was the first client for you guys individually where you first went like, like I'm a good coach, like I can make this a living, I can make this my job, or do you still not think that?
Well, it's definitely my living. It's definitely my main job.
Oh, as in like the thought like, I'm a good coach, because you are both the two of the best coaches in the country, if not the best.
For Strongman?
Stop it. Keep going.
No, we know.
You paid him to say that.
That's scripted.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think I would have started doing it if I didn't think I could be good at it. Like,
I wouldn't have asked you to start if I didn't think you could be good at it.
That too. Like, yeah, I think it was, I don't like not being good at anything.
Yeah.
So I think for me, if I didn't think I could be really, really good at it, I just wouldn't have done it. I would have been like, that's not for me. Because I did personal training in commercial gyms like years ago, and then left that being like, that world's not for me. I don't particularly like that sales aspect. And I think when you'd mentioned like, would you want to start? I was already somewhat but I was already kind of coaching people.
People
like
in the gym, just like offering advice.
Just friends and people doing stuff. I was already picking apart how they move and being like, why don't you try this?
Yeah.
So I feel like it already felt like I was doing that for free in a way.
Yeah.
So then it was like,
paid for it.
yeah, and then I was like, yeah, I could actually just do it and like really dive into it and learn more.
Yeah.
But I was always that way with training. Like, I was always the athlete that you'd send a program and I'm like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, he always asks questions.
I'll be like, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
But I would love to know why.
Yeah. Which is part of the reason why you choose, like, it's like the same with John, like, he is the reason why, like, I look at people, I'm like, they work really hard. Like, Leigh was a hard worker. It's like, personality traits. So I hire people on the back of this. It's like, if I see people training hard and like they're consistent and methodical with how they're training, how they're actualizing feedback and stuff, that transcends into other things you do in life. Do you know what I mean? So you can pick people based on the fact that like how they do one thing is often how it bleeds into everything else, you know? John was different because he came over here, but Jasmine was like, have you met John in person? And I was like, no, I haven't. And she's coming over here, live in our house for 4 weeks and take all your clients. And I was like, fucking yes. And he'll do great. And the feedback that I had from him taking my face-to-face clients was amazing. Like, they fucking loved him because do you know what I mean? I've been coaching that guy for 5 years. And part of that is like when we coach people, like they know the level of service that we're giving. They know what the expectation is around the coaching. They know how we do things. So you know that anything that they go forth and provide your clients is kind of coming from the same lens that you've fostered. Do you know what I mean? And then by doing it, people start off, they rope learn, and then by doing it, they get their own flavor. They become their own coach. They have their own style of programming and stuff. You know, that's when it happens. In terms of like circling back to the question, like when did I feel like I was a good coach? I got no fucking idea. Like I still don't think like,
He's an anomaly. He just kind of like turned 8 and started eating broccoli and chicken breasts and lifting weights.
I did know very
like
early.
He'd leave primary school and go back and like train, basically.
Yeah. So the thing was,
I feel like that was just always your life.
Yeah, it was always me. Like I don't have any other.
You've always wanted to do it.
Yep.
Ever since you were young, it's always pretty
much been like the whole thing.
You're the anomaly.
Yeah. I picked it very early, and like I was a PT at 18, and I was like, it was a good PT.
Yeah.
Like I'm a good face-to-face. Like I was, and being a personal trainer and being a coach are two very fucking different things. They don't like, they might not, I think there is a level of ability as a face-to-face coach that comes over that people miss out on with online coaching now. Like online coaches who have never done face-to-face or haven't put in hours and sharpened their teeth in face-to-face. I think there is something missing that you want that face-to-face time, just in terms of like working with people, building rapport with people, picking up movement things. Like I still like get clients in person, face-to-face, so I can fix stuff, because you can fix stuff just so much fucking faster sometimes with real-time feedback, you know? Makes a big difference, which is like why I still enjoy doing face-to-face. But I was a face-to-face PT first, and I became a coach just through owning the gym. Do you know what I mean? Like I was programming members, and then like I was like, I opened it up to online. fuck, like online coaching was $15 a week when I started. Do you know what I mean? And this is another thing I find that like I see coaches do wrong now. Like starting up, it's like, oh, we're starting up. It's $75 for coaching. No one knows who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, no, you don't have any fucking reasonable qualifications. You haven't worked with enough people to understand what it is. Like, there's no demand. Do you know what I mean? So your supply should be lower. Do you know what I mean?
What
like,
was mine?
Build the demand. 30 or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
That's
like,
also the other thing is like, you have 5 clients and then you have 8 and then 6 and then 10 and then 12. That happens for a year.
Yeah.
At $30 per client. So you're doing all of these extra hours for a couple $100.
You have to build a business. Like there's got to be some grind to it.
Yeah, there was a good 12 months where I'm like, God, this is so much like work on top of my actual work.
100%.
And I'm like
trying to do both.
And I'm like, and I'm getting $400.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, and especially with flooring, because like,
yeah, it's a good money. You like lay some floor, you get paid.
yeah, and I was good at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one thing. Like I'll tell people, and they're like, "Oh, were you?" And I'm like, "There's not many things I'll put up my hand and be like, I was real fucking good at this." But I'm like, I was very quick, and I'd get paid like per job.
Yeah.
So I'm like $400 for a flooring job. I'm like, I could do that on half a day.
Yes.
And just knock it out, and then be driving home in my own time at a house that's empty. And I'm like, and I'm sitting on a computer like for hours and programming and stuff, and I'm not even getting paid that. And I'm like, fuck.
Same with like the gym. Like
you have to
gym
love
startup,
doing it.
Gym startups are the same. Like we'll talk about this at the awards.
Yeah, you like
night.
live in the gym,
Fucking
basically.
live in the gym basically all day. I was making $100 a week from the gym for fucking 3 years. $100. 4 years, I reckon. Well, my pay was $100 from the gym.
See, you have to really want to do it.
Yeah, for the amount of stress for $100, like I can tell you what. But you know,
not
like I
look at the
hung
end
out
goal
here all
of-
day. I
yeah.
trained. I did some programming and stuff like that. So different
But
dynamics.
to be successful as an online coach, you have to really enjoy doing that
Yeah,
and
you
working
do.
with people.
Yeah, and you have to keep chipping
Before
away.
the success and the money, or
Yeah,
I mean,
but
fuck,
was
it doesn't get paid.
I was talking to this with one of the guys who I was talking to this about with, and I said when I started, I'd rock up to boot camp at 6 a.m. on a Wednesday, and it was fucking pouring down rain, and I had to keep showing up to build that business.
Yep.
You just fucking make your coffee in the morning and turn up on Wednesday and make some content and keep building your business. So I said you're not losing too much, but you just got to keep showing up.
Yep.
You got to keep putting the content out. You got to keep establishing like rapport and like authority, and you just got to keep like one client becomes 2 clients, 2 clients become 3 clients. Like it's not fucking fast.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like it's building a new business. That's all it is.
Yeah, there's like quite a number of guys in the UK, especially, maybe not so much the US, but in the UK that weren't ever really top athletes, but are really good coaches.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people say like, you almost can't do that.
Well, yeah, you definitely can.
But no, they're very smart, and genetically they just weren't anything special.
But they still compete. You still know. Do you know
But
what I
they
mean?
know the sport inside and
Yeah.
out, and they know the body inside and out.
Yeah.
So I think knowing what you are,
Yeah.
are you the top athlete that's really strong that can teach someone to go where you went, or are you really smart?
Yeah. Yeah,
Or-
knowing which line to play on social media becomes a very important thing. Like which line of
You can't be everyone.
no,
you can't be everything.
everyone, and you can't mimic anyone too much. But you need to be yourself and authentically yourself, but know which line you're going to take. Like,
Yeah.
what's your groove in that like thing? But all paths have been walked. Everyone's like
Yeah, I just mean match it up with what you actually are.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to be conflicting,
yeah,
and it's not going to sell.
Who was your
or work
first
well.
like client where you felt like not like where you felt like you were a good coach, but who was one of the clients that you felt like propelled the business for you in terms of being a like higher end or competitive coach?
One of the first, possibly one of the women that just shared story after story after story and competed. Like Nita was probably one of the earlier women that I had on that was competing and doing
Yeah,
like
quite
Vicks,
well.
and she
Yeah.
was meant to
Yeah,
prep
she
for
was doing well.
Arnold's and stuff, and she would just post every video, like every training, every accessory, everything. And I know there's a few people that come on and they were like, yeah, like you coach her.
Yeah.
And I think that also helped.
Yeah,
with
like clients who share stuff a lot. Yeah.
also probably helped with like New Zealand, because New Zealand they had like 2 good
not a
coaches
good-
at the
not a lot of
time.
Coaches, yeah.
So at that time, we ended up getting a good chunk
Yeah, we
from
did
New
have
Zealand
quite a
as
lot
well.
of New Zealand coach, yeah.
And I would say that probably was Nita as well, because
Yeah,
Kiwis stick with Kiwis.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, yeah. Yeah.
Once you get the nod from one, you get the nod from all.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like who. I had some good powerlifters early. Do you know what I mean? Who like a lot of my coaching was a very large amount of powerlifting, because I would probably say that my competing was maybe slightly more skewed towards powerlifting when I first started than like strongman.
Yep.
Then you would have been one who was like crushing, like obviously like the first one who went to Worlds. Do you know what I mean? Like was doing really well at a national level and stuff, and then probably flowed on from there. But yeah, I couldn't like put a finger on who. It's a long time ago though too, you know.
Yeah, you coached Vernon for years as well.
Yeah, Vernon was another good
Did
one.
a lot of ASMs.
Yeah, there's a few like. I always think about like the ASM side of stuff. Like, I actually think since I started coaching, I've probably had someone at an ASM every year.
Yep.
Pretty much. I don't think there's a year that I haven't had someone at ASM or multiple.
I think the higher level somebody is, probably the less that they did business-wise.
Yep.
In establishing like more people coming on, being like, oh, you coach this person, they're really good.
Yeah.
I think some people were so good that it was too far past.
Yeah, sure. I definitely agree. And I
Like,
I feel
oh, you coach
mid-range-
Australia's strongest man. Like, I don't
Cool,
think
I'm
many
not that.
people turn up and go, can you coach me? Because they
No.
see that as, that's a freak.
Except for now when you're coaching all the guys at ASM or something like that, I feel like the good guys go, well, there's something going on here.
Yeah,
Do you
but
know
I
what
think
mean?
if it was
Like-
just one standout
No,
freak,
yeah.
whereas I
yeah,
think
totally.
the really good intermediate that's working hard, that is continually getting
Yeah.
better, is the one that everyone looks at and goes, who's their coach?
And posting a lot. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, and posting a lot and coming through. I think those are definitely the people that you sort of end up building about. Your business off the back of. Do you have any of the biggest challenges that you face as like a starting off online coach, or even like as an established online coach?
I can't think of any, like, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of challenges, but I think I kind of expected that.
Yeah.
There was nothing that, like, hit me and I was like, oh, why is this so hard? I think I was just expecting it to be a really slow build.
Yeah, I think like if
And a
as
slow,
long as you
gradual
expect
build.
that as well. Like I think people think that it just happens overnight. I think there's some benefit to maybe coming on, like, you know, we've seen it with MST, the guys come on and they're excelled, the time it takes for them to build up their business is a lot faster, and we would probably assume similar with like us, where it's like, well, you're circumnavigating that like necessity to build authority. Do you know what I mean? By coupling yourself with someone who's already built the authority.
Yeah.
I think that definitely can help new coaches for sure. Like,
Yeah,
doing
being
that.
a part of a team.
Yeah, being part of that
Yeah.
team sort of stuff.
No, I've always been happy with like the long game thing, like the same
Yeah.
as starting out with Strongman.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm going to stick at this for a while until I decide I'm not.
Yeah, do you
So
know
I know it's however long it's going to take is however long it's going to take, and I'm going
Yeah.
to do my best to speed that up. And it was the same with coaching, where I was like, okay, well, if I want to start this,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it for a year and go, nah, it's not happening quick enough, fuck
Yeah.
this. I was like, if I'm going to start it, this is something that I want to do long term. So
I'm going to build this up.
however long it takes to get there, it'll eventually get there.
And I always say, like, I was 10 years, I said 10 years, like I said, and this is depressing because it's like kind of now. I was like 32, you know what I mean? I
Yep.
always had like 10 years of like 21, 22, and I was like, I reckon it's going to take me 10 years to get to World's Strongest Man and win it. So it's like, it's this year, bro. So I'm 32.
It's a busy year.
I'm 32. I was like, I always thought like 32, like early 30s is kind of your peak strength years, you know?
Yep.
Bit of work to do.
You might be able to add on the 6 months that you did Ironman and the 6 months that the 6 months out of the sport.
Yeah, I reckon it goes some time.
Yeah, might get you to 34.
Yeah, well, I think it's the same as coaching. Like, if you expect to like be up there in the coaching world in like a year or two, like I don't think it goes like that. I think it's like 5 years to be like the coach. You know what I mean? And it's hard now because there's a lot of the coaches. You know?
Yeah, I still see people that have coached for 3 years and like spout stuff about the sport and how it was back then, and I'm like, back when? I'm like, you've been coaching for 3. I'm like, I've actually been coaching longer than you've actually been competing in the sport, not even turned into coach.
It's very funny.
So I've seen competitors turn into coaches, and I'm like, I've coached longer than they've competed.
And I say that I know full well there's other guys there that have been there for a lot fucking longer than I have too. Like, I'm a baby and I've been there for a decade.
While we spout off shit about back in the day.
Yeah, and we used to like say back in the day, you know, and they're probably like, fuck these guys, like no fucking idea. But like, you know, even in a decade, like I look at, and I'm sure these, like, I know there's guys that probably feel the same, if not like it's wilder, but I look at comp photos and stuff, I'm like, there's no one left in this group photo.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and was talking to a client this week, they're like, how do you like have like a level of like, don't really giving a fuck. Like if you offend someone, I do care. Like I don't want to be an asshole, but like when we do this sort of stuff, it's like you just don't seem to like care too much. And I was like, I do care, but we've been here long enough where it's like I've seen promoters come and go. I've seen good ones, bad ones. You've seen competitors come and go. You see the drama come and go. Do you know what I mean? It's all the fucking same on a merry-go-round, bro. It just comes around in cycles.
Well, you've had people say that you don't care that you offend people doing this.
I don't care.
Do you not care? See, I don't value my own opinion enough. So when I say something, I'm like, I expect everyone to just be like, pfft.
It's not that I don't care. I just don't take myself too seriously.
No,
like I talk
think
shit all the time, and sometimes I listen to it and go, "You're a fuckhead, mate." Like that's wrong.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I mean.
I'm just talking shit, and
I don't overly value my own opinion, so I don't expect anyone else to.
yeah, and I always think like I'm the first one to take the piss out of myself. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm more than happy to like pull up my own downfalls as like both an athlete and a human. So I'm like, if you can't handle like that being brought to light, then like, I do it to myself. I'm happy to do it to others.
I sit there and say about how everything could be better and I'd do things different. But if you put me in charge,
I'll probably fuck it up.
Be worse than Trump.
Let's roll to, speaking of Trump, Strongman executive orders. So Trump is the Prime Minister. This is Louis. Do you want to explain this little section, Louis?
After looking at all of Trump's executive orders, I thought, why not bring it to the podcast? We've got Tyson and Leigh. They're going to be signing some executive orders for the whole of Strongman if they were to become supreme leaders.
Hold on. I want Louis' executive order first. Louis, as the president of Strongman in the world, please tell us your executive order.
Executive order number 1. Deadlift suits are completely banned unless you choose to wear them. You have to wear them for every single event.
Love to see a deadlift suit with like stones or something.
Yeah.
And you're like
trying to get down.
trying to reach down with the tacky.
What is your executive order, Lee Shaw?
Mine was way more serious. I was just going to standardize the entirety of the sport.
Can you please elaborate on a standardized? Because when you first said that, I was like, shut the fuck up, Lee. Because I was like, I don't want to get into standardization. But no, your standardization was very, I feel it was actually quite on point. Explain what you mean by standardization.
So whether it was national, worldwide, whatever it was, but making it like the NBA, your court rims are X height, your court size is this size. So simple things like up until a state level, no deadlift suits.
Yeah.
Once you get to a national level, across all countries, deadlift suits are allowed. Yeah. Then international, obviously the same. Or you could interchange any rule or anything like that, or be like,
but
you know what, let's not do...
generally standardized like at like regional levels, state levels. These equipment generally won't come up, and then from a national level, like it's always going to be a deadlift in a suit kind of stuff.
And potentially like events. Yeah. Like don't give overly complex, really dangerous events to local comps.
Yeah, keep it
be like, let's keep it simple. Let's find those 5 events that will make someone really strong. Yeah. Let's put more of those in at lower levels so people can just get strong. And then as they get higher up, let's incorporate more complicated and more complex things. Because if you give beginners like, you have 3 bars to choose from, one has 5 points, one has 3 points, one has 1 point, and you have this amount of time, they're not going to know what to do. Yeah. It's going to be complicated. It's just going to be a fucking mess. It's not going to be fun. Like,
I know what
like
you're saying,
with like lower levels and beginner levels, people that don't have coaches, they just want to go in and have fun. Yeah. So like, don't overcook events. Yeah. And then as it works up higher, it can be more complicated and it can be more like, so some level of like standard, I guess, if people get into the sport, they just go, this is kind of how it works. Yeah.
From this level, you
local
know what
level,
to expect to go up to national level. This is what you can expect. Okay, cool. I'm coming up to a national level. I'll need a deadlift suit.
Yeah, and you think about that in like sport where they play rugby union, and then they play like regionals, and then they play like national level, and like the rules slightly change. The sport is slightly different.
Yeah, sure. I like it. It's a good one. Fuck, I don't know. I like that every comp that you do, you have to volunteer for one comp. I think that's a fun one.
The APU, the APA, the IPF,
then it's like, do you
whatever
force
the federation?
people to like you shouldn't have to force people to volunteer. They should just want to fucking be part of the sport. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I always say that argument. Jesus.
How about everyone that wants to compete or once they've done 5 comps, they have to run a comp?
Yeah.
And you just give them the reins and go, good luck. And then they come back and go, you know what?
I would-
I respect promoters now.
I would love to see a lot of people run comps. And then, like, I know people who run comps who still complain about comps being run. And then I have
Other comps.
and then I have 100 fucking athletes who do the comps and complain about their comp. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, it's like, fuck. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think everyone should have to run a comp once to understand, like, actually what goes into running a comp, because it's definitely work.
Give them an
No one's
important
ever
job.
happy. Yeah, just like trying to find volunteers and all that sort of stuff. It can just be a real fucking headache sometimes. What would my executive order be though? Like one rule to like rule them all in Strongman.
We can have more than one executive order,
I
can't
know
you?
we can have many executive orders, but
107.
107 executive orders.
That's how many Trump signed on
Is
his
that
first
what is
day.
that what we have to try and come up with?
I was like, wait, is that how many rings are in Lord of the Rings? Like, why 107?
I'm not too sure. I don't know. What I like more car park comps.
More car park comps.
Yeah, I think I would like to see more independent comps, full stop, executive orders, like more independent comps pop up. I'd love to see more people like run comps, and like, but then there's so many. It's like the same thing that we have is like, well, then you dilute the standard. Do you
Yeah,
know
the
what I mean?
pool.
Like the pool. Do you know what I mean? Like the less people in those actual comps. Sometimes less comps is actually better. I would say, barring my executive order is barring a medical certificate or scan, you can't pull out of the comp. If you,
I was actually going
if
to go
you
with
s-
something similar and be like, I want to ban the pre-comp post of, by the way, guys, I got injured 4 weeks out, but I'm still doing the comp. Let's see how I go.
Yeah. Hey. I
I
take
know.
offense to that.
I probably got so many people offended right now. Depends on the context too.
Mine are legitimate injuries. I've got scans, I promise.
I did mine afterwards.
Yeah.
I did the full comp, and then like 2
Yeah.
weeks later, I was like, hey, by the way, I blew a disc out 3 weeks before comp.
I think if you sign up for a comp and your name goes on the fucking flyer, I think you're committed to that comp no matter what, barring like a medical fucking exemption. Do you know what I mean? Like a scan or something to show that like, nah, this is like, I can't do this. Don't just fucking like pull out because you're being a shit cunt. Especially like, well, I just think like comps, like promoters are banking on those athletes once they sign up. Do you know what I mean? Like you can't pull out.
Especially if they've got a bit of a platform and people want to
Promoting
see
comps
them.
and stuff like that. This is at all levels, you know. Like I just don't think that like sign up for a comp, you do it. Full stop.
Yeah, for the most part, athletes want to sign up and compete with a bigger group.
Yes, for sure.
So
yeah.
if they see that there's 6 people in a weight class, they jump in because there's 6.
Exactly, and then 3 of them pull out, and it's like, oh,
And
like,
they're
I'm
like-
rocking up to a comp with 3 other people. It's not fun.
Yeah, and they're like, I wouldn't have signed up
No.
otherwise. So then the next comp turns around and there's 3 people and they're like, well, no.
Yeah,
Like people won't sign up because there's not
yeah.
enough.
That's my executive order.
I can just imagine just someone sitting in the corner like this, getting the shits, and the promoter's like, go do your log. I don't want to. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
You signed up for the comp. Go do your log.
Not my fault. You're feeling weak.
And then they go out and bust out their reps.
Yeah.
Not happy about it. Like, go eat your vegetables.
Strongman prison if you don't follow the executive orders. That is all for the all for Strongman Say today. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's a pretty meaty episode with plenty to take notes on, which I love. So hopefully it's helpful to your strongmanning or strong womaning, and we'll see you in a fortnight's time.
Done.
Great.